Now we have Ms. Rebecca Bakare back. She is going to talk about driving equality of opportunity along the supply chain, sustainability for African food companies. Rebecca is the founder and CEO of Mama's Creation Foods, North America and South Africa. Over to you, Rebecca, for your session.
Without no further delay, so my name is Rebecca Bakare. I'm the founder and CEO of Mama's Creation Foods, which is an African health food company, as well as a social enterprise that offers nutrient-dense food products that makes it easier and convenient for people to support their well-being, nourish themselves with African botanicals. So today, I'm going to be talking about how why we are driving equality of opportunity for women along our supply chain at Mama's Creation Foods. So to begin with, I'll be going over how sustainability in the form of equality of opportunities for women in African agriculture is essential for business success, especially for an African food company. I'll be talking about this.
Rebecca, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you switch on your video?
There's an issue with the video, and I don't want to.
No problem.
Yes, I don't want to delay people further. Talking about this using two perspectives, the supply chain perspective and the consumer perspective. Then I'm also going to talk about some of the practices that I've put in place to ensure the Mama's Creation Foods is embracing sustainability while also communicating that effectively with its stakeholders, especially customers. So the reality for us at Mama's Creation Foods and most food companies is the fact that when women in African agriculture lack adequate opportunity to develop resilient livelihoods for themselves, supply chain instability thrives. So these women are often the custodians of a lot of nutrient-dense crops that one can find across Africa. However, they have restricted access to markets for these crops. They often receive little to no economic reward for the crops, and as a result, they are found often cultivating these nutrient-dense crops like hibiscus, like fonio, like moringa on a subsistence basis. So as an African food company whose main inputs are nutrient-dense African crops, it is not only a moral imperative for us to ensure that women in African agriculture are able to realize their full potential of cultivating the crops that we need, but it is also a business imperative. It is a business imperative in a sense that it allows us to avoid inadequate supply of the raw ingredients that we need to manufacture our product on a sustainable basis. So how are we doing creating equality of opportunities for women in our supply chain at Mama's Creation Foods? Essentially, we are leveraging ethical sourcing and direct engagement with our stakeholders on the supply side. So first, in order to create a network of suppliers, we engage directly with women farmers, producers, as well as grassroots organizations that embrace transparency. Second, we prioritize local value addition to nutrient-dense crops and actually engage women in this process so as not just create access to premium markets for the women, but also involve them in the segment of the agricultural value chain that is lucrative. Third, we compensate these women fairly for all the ingredients that we source from them. So each year, we actually sit down together to set a price at which we're going to source our ingredients from them for the duration of 1 year. As a result of these practices, Mama's Creation Foods is able to create incentives for women in African agriculture to move from cultivating nutrient-dense crops on a subsistence basis to a sustainable commercial basis. And this leads me to one of the other reasons why it is a business imperative, a moral imperative for African food companies or any food company whose primary inputs African agriculture produce to create opportunities for women in African agriculture. Climate change. So there are several reports that have indicated that smallholder farmers across Africa are one of the groups that are most vulnerable to the effects of climate change. And over the past 5 years, the world has witnessed these women bear the brunt, both women and men bear the brunt of the climate crisis and the form of infestation of diseases and pests like the desert locust in East Africa, to irregular rain patterns that lead to droughts in some areas of Africa and floods in other areas. So currently in African agriculture, report shows that women are burdened with inequitable access to resources for profitable agriculture. And without intervention, this same inequality will actually play out in terms of this women's access to programs that would support the transition to sustainable agriculture. In the face of the climate threat, this inequality that is based on gender has a huge potential to disrupt the supply of crops that are unfortunately termed women's crops, crops like fonio, crops like hibiscus, crops like moringa, that women across Africa are mostly found cultivating. And with this disruption, it will become difficult for food companies, be it the ones in Africa or the ones outside Africa that are dependent on the agricultural produce that women in Africa cultivate. It will become difficult for them to manage their inventory levels, which would most likely lead to lost sales opportunity. So this is the reason why at Mama's Creation Foods, we believe that creating equal access to opportunities for women in Africa agriculture is actually the only way forward. So from the onset, I was intentional about creating a network of partners that includes grassroots organizations like GCPIT 2050, who have expertise in the provision of sustainable agricultural training. And these organizations are actually mission aligned through the application of a gender lens to the provision of their services. As a result of these partnerships, Mama's Creation Foods is positioned to not only generate profits, long-term profitability, but also impact. And this includes supporting the transition of women in African agriculture to resilient agricultural practices. We are also able to support these women in creating resilient livelihoods for themselves. And as a result, we're able to have a diverse network of women suppliers that are at different stages of the transition to sustainable agriculture. Consequently, we're able to minimize the supply chain risks that Mama's Creation Foods could face in the future, and even in the nearest future, due to climate shocks and possible economic shocks. So aside from the supply side reasons that African food companies in general have to ensure that they're creating equality of opportunities for people regardless of their gender, they also have consumer side reasons. So a case in point are the demand from millennials and Gen Zs who are already driving consumer activism and aligning their purchases, their consumptions with ethical values, as well as sustainability values. These consumer groups are actually pushing brands to embrace authenticity, to be transparent when it comes to their sourcing practices, and most importantly, to take a stance on social and environmental issues. Millennials and Gen Zs are also willing to actually pay more for sustainability. So a recent report shows that 54% of consumers across the world are willing to pay a premium for products that are produced in a sustainable manner. And it's not even just about one-time purchases. As a recent study by Deloitte shows that 36% of millennials indicated that they've actually increased their relationship with businesses due to such businesses' ethical sourcing practices. So it's actually not just enough for a company to have ethical sourcing practices or to be sustainable. It also has to communicate that effectively with the stakeholders. Data actually shows that this is the case in point in terms of the Canadian market, as 33% of Canadians indicated that they're actually willing to pay more to support brands that they know have ethical and sustainability practices that benefits the environment as well as people. So how does a company ensure that it is engaging with its customers in a way that allows them to know that it is sustainable? I think one of the important practices is to set clear sustainability commitments that are interrelated. And then such company can show customers and stakeholders how it is implementing this commitment across its operations. So for us at Mama's Creation Foods, we are leveraging 3 strategies. So the first one is, as a founder, I ensure that I lead with authenticity by sharing how the sustainability values that we are implementing at Mama's Creation Foods are related to my own lived experiences. Second, we leverage our product packaging to give customers insight into our supply chain. So when a customer actually picks up our product for the first time, they're able to gain insight into our sourcing practices and also have the option to go to a page on our website where they learn more about our women suppliers. And the most important strategy is the fact that we are sharing our impact stories that focus on the impact that our women suppliers are able to generate because they themselves are empowered. Through these 3 strategies, Mama's Creation Foods is able to generate brand loyalty from existing customers while positioning itself to attract new ones. We are also able to give our women suppliers visibility that further incentivizes them to create more impact in their own communities. So over the past 10 months since we started sourcing from different women in different African countries, I have noticed this impact generation play out, specifically with 2 of our women suppliers. So meet Brenda and Kelechi. Brenda is based in northern Zimbabwe. And due to our partnership, Brenda has not only grown a social circle by interacting and working with other women in our community, she has also been able to sell other baobab fruit-based products that she's been able to produce due to our work in the baobab fruit supply chain. Brenda has also been able to learn how to produce baobab powder in an hygienic way, and she has gone ahead to train 7 other women when it comes to baobab production, and she's providing jobs for all of these women. So with the resources that these women are able to get from the jobs, they're able to send their children to school, among other things. Then we have Kelechi, who is based in northern Nigeria. Kelechi has been able to train and employ 5 more women in our business, which is value addition agribusiness based in northern Nigeria. She's also able to deepen our relationship with other women in our community due to the impact that she's generating within that community. And lastly, she's been able to expand our business by naturally processing and selling 6 more nutritious crops that we are sourcing from her, and that she's also able to sell within our local markets. So essentially, I do believe that sustainability is not only a moral imperative, it is actually very important. It is essential for business success for companies that are based in our food supply chain. So at Mama's Creation Foods, because we are creating opportunities for women along our supply chain and even across our operations, we are better positioned to ensure supply chain stability against climate risk and economic shocks. We are also well positioned to meet customer demand and, most importantly, position ourselves for long-term business growth and profitability. And an important part of all of this impact that we've been able to generate is partnerships. I believe that partnerships are crucial for any large-scale impact realization. And this is the same in the sense of a large-scale adoption of sustainable business models within Africa and beyond. Thank you so much for your patience and for the time you've taken to listen to how we're driving equality of opportunities for women along our supply chain at Mama's Creation Foods. I look forward to collaborating with like-minded individuals and organizations who are focused on creating opportunities for women in our food supply chains. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for that excellent session and sharing your experience in Mama's Creation Foods. It was really interesting to know that Gen Z is ready to pay more to support ethical brands, and this shows that they care about the environment more than us. And it also gives us hope for the future. Thank you for joining us today and for that excellent session.
Thank you so much, Sana, partner.